Chapter 385. The man, who had been blinking in silence several times, turned his head away, covering his mouth with his hand. Yudhir couldn't help but doubt whether he had said something wrong. Commander? No, just wait for a moment. After blocking the approaching Yudhir, Kishir lowered his hand after a while and turned back to Yudhir. The first thing that caught his eye was the fiery look in his eyes. I never used to believe that honesty could be the greatest weapon, but you never know until you experience it. Pardon? I mean, your words just now pleased me more than any praise I have ever received. Had not complaining or getting angry because it didn't hurt really deserve to be taken as such great praise? He didn't understand why Kishir reacted that way to his answer, but he decided not to ask any further since he seemed pleased. Yudhir? Yes? What was he calling for this time? Kishir's red lips curled into a smile at Yudhir's slightly delayed response. Heal quickly. Pardon? I always wish for your recovery, but never have I wished for it as deeply as I do at this moment. I would like that too, if possible, but it was not something that could be done at will. Healing his body was now in the hands of Anon, Helm, and Mick, so there was nothing he could do himself. Even to find a way to complement Kishir's skill, he wished that they would find a clue within a short time. No, wait. While thinking absent-mindedly, Yudhir glanced at Kishir's still smiling face. Only then did it occur to him that the meaning of that smile might not simply be a wish for a speedy recovery. And as if he had been waiting for that realization, a low and sweet voice rang in his ears. How much I long for the day when you look at me again with those eyes, and the time when we return together to our cavalry. My assistant probably wouldn't understand. Our cavalry. In the strange emotion that unfamiliar yet familiar words evoked, Yudhir found himself unable to say anything. After the Duke of Paleta and his cavalry achieved a significant victory at the western edge of the Great Serene Forest, the monsters' attacks that had been disturbing the borderlands were reduced to the usual levels. Not only did the cavalry defeat a giant monster without losing a single man, but they also left their excellent elite members in the Great Serene Forest to assist with monster subjugation, receiving the praises of the Empire's people living in the borderlands. Additionally, when the rumor that the Duke of Paleta was confirmed by the Sun God Temple priests in the west to be the true owner of the Divine Sword began to spread, a new tension began to stir in the capital. Naturally, it was the high-ranking nobles who had most doubted its rumor that caused the tension. That's absurd. The priests recognize the Divine Sword? The sharp voice that carried far made Kiol the Diarca halt his steps. His gaze fell on a small rose garden where the Duke of Diarca often enjoyed a leisurely cup of tea with his close friends. Today too, the Duke was hosting a meeting in that place, famous as the most beautiful section of the extensive garden divided into several sections. The Tain Duke's house is keeping it quiet, but there are many who saw him win battles with that sword. It seems it can't be denied. The reason I'm doing this now is, of course, to use the health of the Crown Prince as an excuse. Are you going to burden yourself with the legend of the first emperor? But please, don't worry too much. In contrast of the clanging voice of the Duke Diarca, the voices of those around were faint and weak, barely audible. But what was being said was not difficult to deduce. The new master of the cavalry and the Divine Sword. Kiol scrunched his nose and recalled the central theme of their conversation. The news that Duke Paleta had become the new master of the Divine Sword had been dismissed as mere rumor since Emperor Kelusa's announcement. But as the achievements of the cavalry in the west became the talk of the town, the doubters were gradually increasing. Of course, the Imperial Knights mostly scoffed at the rumor, but Kiol chose silence over agreement with them, as usual. He had personally seen the power wielded by the cavalry and the inexplicable and unsettling intimidation demonstrated by the dissolute Duke. When Kiol first heard the announcement that Kishir was the new master of the Divine Sword, he thought it might not be a political ploy but the truth. His father and others didn't believe it though. But judging by the words he had just heard, Duke Paleta seemed to have presented undeniable evidence this time. If Duke Paleta were playing at being a leader with commoners, the nobles wouldn't care. But if the new master of the Divine Sword could lead those with strength enough to quell more than monsters and achieve great feats, it would be something they could not ignore, especially in times like these. The Crown Prince, who was bearing the future of the Diarca family, had been in seclusion for a long time since the assassination attempt by the Apeto family. Rumors spread that he had gone mad. Duke Diarca had tried to cure the Crown Prince while suppressing the rumors, but it was not easy to quell them, even with the Diarca family name. What would happen if Duke Paleta, the rightful master of the Divine Sword, and the cavalry returned in such a situation? Even Kiol, who had no interest in politics or power struggles, could see how much on edge his father had been lately. It would probably lead to a war without war. Kiol thought of Yudhir-El, the only cavalry member he knew by name. He hadn't seen that arrogant and monstrous guy's face for quite some time. Through the mark of the oath on his wrist, he knew that Yudhir was alive and well, but every time he heard news of the cavalry from the west, Yudhir's image came to mind. If the rumor about a cavalry member defeating a monster alone in the Great Serene Forest is true, it must have been him. It was more of a conviction than a speculation, something he felt through personal experience. Kiol, shivering, decided to stop thinking and head home. He would have if someone from the group with his father hadn't spotted him and called out loudly, "Oh, young sir, Kiol has returned." The men who had been sipping tea in the garden and elegantly cursing Duke Paleta all looked at Kiol warmingly, lavishing praise upon him. Kiol recognized his first and third brothers among them and frowned deeply. The brothers also looked at Kiol, their irritation barely hidden beneath expressionless faces. Only their father, Duke Diarca, welcomed his youngest son with a softer expression and gesture. "Kiol, have you arrived? Come this way." "Yes." Kiol headed towards his father, swallowing a deep regret that he should have gone in earlier. As he approached, the couriers around the Duke became excited and began to praise him. Young Kiol truly resembles the Duke in his youth. It's as if I'm seeing His Highness's appearance from 40 years ago. Duke Diarca was not particularly pleased that Kiol had become a knight, but whenever he saw him in the knight's uniform, he gladly accepted such praise. "Are you just returning now? You're later than I expected." "Yes, I was a bit delayed and I was discussing the training plan with the commander." "The commander of the Imperial Knights is Theodoro Vantane, isn't it?" "Yes." "The one with the most peculiar talent among those from the Tane family. The one who is so obsessed with the sword that he doesn't even go home. I hear his family is quite concerned." "I also don't often go home during the training." "Ah, but of course Sir Kiol is different from him." After responding insincerely to someone who was desperately trying to join the conversation with his father, Kiol only looked at his father and closed his mouth. "I wish he would tell me to leave quickly." It was more than annoying that he couldn't respond as he wanted due to the vow, but the Duke of Diarca, who by now Keol thought would tell him to go, was looking at him with a face lost in thought. Keol realized that his aging father's eyes were fixed on the emblem of the Imperial Knights on his chest and felt puzzled. Why is he doing that? Keol, it seems that you have a close relationship with Theodore Fontaine. It was more a dull relationship between a commander and a subordinate knight than a close one, but Keol said nothing at first. Duke Diarca, looking at his son as if he had found a good way out for an unexpected place, asked, "Have you heard anything about the situation in the Tain family lately?" "Not particularly, no." "The Duke of Tain says he trusts Theodore most among his nephews. So ask him about it the next time you talk." "Yes." The answer that they were not close enough to have such a conversation was unnecessary to his father. Duke Diarca smiled and lightly patted his son's arm. "I was angry when you used to make a fuss about becoming a mere knight, but lately I think it was good that I listened to your stubbornness. Keep going as you are now." The nobles, who had secretly known about the youngest son's mishaps, exchanged meaningful glances. Keol saw a dark energy in the eyes of his brothers mixed in among them and furrowed his already furrowed brow even more. "This is really annoying."